History is written by the victors, but who will come out on top? The people of Terminus are besieged by the warriors of Anacreon and Thespis. The centuries-old feud between them might not leave survivors. Can the ghost of Seldon do anything to bring them peace? On Trantor, a different internal battle wages as brothers Dawn, Day, and Dusk deal with the incursion that has left one of them permanently tainted. Hello and welcome to Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Mark and I are discussing the 10th episode of the exciting science fiction series Foundation, so spoilers are ahead. And if you want to emerge victorious, join us on the winning side by liking, subscribing, and clicking the bell icon for notifications. And with that, I figured we would start off with themes. The show has a decent number of themes, and I think the first one that kind of came up in this episode was history. So I thought it was interesting, the idea of like history is written by the victors, and we possibly saw an example of that where, you know, the whole story behind why the Anacreons and the Thespins have been fighting has been a lie, you know, created by the Empire in order to drive these two sides against each other rather than having these two emerging superpowers fighting Empire. We've seen it a few other times, but I thought it was kind of interesting that theme kind of cropping in.
And what's crazy is that it seems like the first... So it was Cleon the Second, right? Meaning the very first genetic dynasty, like, of
Yep.
the genetic dynasty, like, set forth in motion to, like, have these two planets war against each other so that they didn't come to fruition. That's crazy to me that we find out that the genetic dynasty has been being terrible for the galaxy since basically the second Cleon.
Right. I have a few possible ideas on that, but I'm going to save them for when we kind of talk about the Cleons. But I 100% agree with you on, like, they've been a driving force since pretty much the beginning. Another one of the themes we saw was the leap of faith, which I thought was kind of interesting because it's something that you do not necessarily knowing the outcome. And I think we saw both sides of it, like leaps that might not have paid off and leaps that very much did pay off.
So, like, which leap of faith are you referring to?
So, like, I see Dawn taking the leap of trying to leave Empire as being like that was a big, you know, moment of like trust in somebody outside of his circle that seemed like somebody trustworthy, that he really leapt into her arms, and I think it majorly didn't pay off.
Yes.
You know, his original instincts of maybe keeping everything quiet maybe were the right instincts.
We actually saw him take a physical leap of faith originally that started this whole, like, his leap of faith jumping out the window,
Right.
trusting in the bracelet, was actually a leap of faith towards Azura as well. I would also say that Gale had a leap of faith, jumping from
Big.
the Raven to Synax, which 138 years, that's a... And knowing your city's probably gone, that's a pretty big leap of faith.
Right. So, like, and technically Salvor kind of made the same leap, you know, and they both ended up together. I would say that, like, Gale's was definitely the bigger one, because I don't know if that little pod has, like, the juice to go more direction, you know, like, if it could escape orbit, you know, versus at least Salvor has a ship, which means that Gale could have come to this planet and found nothing. So, like, that is pretty much the definition of a leap. You know, like, you are 100% leaving all footing and hoping you can make it to the other side safe.
And Cleon's leap of faith was unsuccessful, where Gale's seems a little bit more successful. Maybe this is a foreshadowing of what's to come in this giant war between Cleon and the little new trio of comrades.
And I think in a previous episode, like, you can even say, like, that Lewis took a leap, even though he knew that, he was probably giving his life. I think that it didn't matter whether or not he died. The like, finding the footing is, does it work out for the people with him, or does he potentially screw them? You know? So it's kind of interesting seeing these themes kind of coming up. So another one of the themes that we kind of saw here was legacy. We see the Cleons trying to leave their own mark, but we're also seeing, like, the legacy of the Foundation, and I thought it was kind of interesting that Mari thought that their legacy was one thing. It turned out that Hari kind of surprised them, and it's going to be something else that is their legacy. What I think is kind of interesting about that legacy is that he mentioned, that this is going to be like 1,000 years in the making. So are we potentially going to see another big jump?
Well, I think we already saw a big jump. We saw 138 years where at the end of the episode where Salvor and Gaal are now on Synax together. 138 years in the future, so, it seems like probably Salvor's mom's gone.
Right.
A lot of people on Terminus are probably gone, I would assume.
I mean, I almost kind of think that, like, that brings us down to, like, Gaal, Salvor, Hari, as, Gaal and Salvor being the people traveling using these pods. Hari is somebody who is, I don't know, energy, so
he's
he
the
can
ghost.
live on.
No, he's the ghost.
He's the ghost.
He's
Yep.
the ghost.
And then some version of Empire. And Demerzel.
Right. Well, what about... I think Hugo will still be around.
You think so?
I do think Hugo's going to stick around. And the reason I think Hugo's going to stick around is because we already know that he has made a bunch of jumps before. So he's already 75, 80 years old, technically.
But that's because he wasn't jumping. So, like, as he was doing that long distance travel, in order to not age a ton during the travel and basically die just from going place to place, he was, like,
sleeping,
using the cryopod.
Right.
So I mean, maybe they have cryopods on the Invictus. I don't know.
I do think they have... Oh, wait, maybe they don't have cryopods because they did a different form of jumping. So it might be very different there. But I could see Hugo being like, I'm going to wait for Salvor to come back. I'm freezing myself. Wake me up when Salvor comes back. Maybe. Because, I mean, I don't know. That goodbye... It hurt, but, like, I feel like it wasn't the end.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Also, he's got those, like, piercing blue eyes.
Gosh,
like,
and I like that.
Dagger.
Oh yeah, and they've only been doing it since he got back in contact with Thespins. Like, he flashed them once, but ever since being back with the Thespins, he's had them, and he's got those baby blues.
Yeah. I can possibly see an argument for, but I feel like the show hasn't. It pretty unceremoniously let Raish go.
Yeah, well,
like we just didn't know what Raish's fate was for a period of time, and then when Gaal finally sees it, it's like just a sad, like, just getting jettisoned into space, and then...
Yeah, but I feel like we didn't have too much of Raish. Like, Raish was a flash in the pan the first episode. We didn't get to know him very well. And then in the second episode, it was just showing him and Gale's relationship. And then after that, we just saw him get jettisoned. So I don't think he necessarily had enough screen presence where... The only other character that I see that has had enough screen presence that would make it into the next season would be Hugo. And possibly Rowan? I felt like Rowan, we would see Rowan again.
He's great.
Yeah, Rowan's great. Like, he I love that whole scene of them planting the tree. That's another legacy. Going back to the legacy, where
Right.
the legacy of Anacreon planting that tree.
I feel like when we see Terminus again, that it might have a number of those trees, and then that one will be,
The
very
first
mature.
one. Yes. And
Absolutely.
I like that tree is also like the symbol of Anacrea or Anacreon, where it's like they were stubborn. Remember, like, so Cleon tried to
Yeah.
kill them, try to like wipe them away from the planet or existence, and
Yeah.
they were stubborn enough to basically almost send the Invictus right into the heart of Trantor.
Right. Stubborn enough that they were almost willing to just like give themselves up just to prove, just to like pay back a blood debt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also the same symbol of with Farah herself. She tripled the life expectancy anybody that survived that. She was just as stubborn as those trees. That's why she was Grand Huntress.
Yeah. I like that. Another one I think that we saw that has been popping up a bunch is ghosts. And okay, so one of the ghosts that I think I kind of see, and it's kind of a bit of a fucked up ghost, is if you think about like Azora's new life, she is basically going to be trapped, like almost like just outside of the world of the living. Like she'll be conscious, but like
Yeah.
won't be able to like touch, taste, and feel. You know?
That's almost a form of purgatory. Like she's just
Yeah.
that I couldn't imagine a more horrific punishment than that.
That is the definition of cruelty. Like that goes beyond that. That's not even a punishment where you expect them to learn from their crimes. That is just
Like
that is cruelty.
there is nothing that she can learn from that. Like she's going to live her days out. Like she can't even like reform herself. She can't try. It's nope. You are permanently tortured.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like if she ever manages to get out, like let's just say that like Trantor falls,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody breaks her out, I feel like she would be a force of chaos
Well, not
after that. Like,
well, not even that. If you think about what Harry said about when he was building the vault, like why he wasn't conscious in there. Like even
yep,
with your consciousness being alone for that long, even the strongest willed minds will break and shatter. So even if Trantor does fall, I think her brain is completely gone.
right. Yeah, that I just thought that was awful.
That's
There were kind of a few other references to ghosts. There was like the ghost whistle, that
right.
Mari's mom gave her, and that now that the Foundation is believed to be dead, they kind of are ghosts that will like come back to
Oh
haunt
yeah.
Empire.
They. Oh my god! I didn't even think about that one. The fact that they are now ghosts building up a revolution against Empire. That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Let's get to something I think you've been possibly itching to talk about, which is the Cleons.
Man, there's so much about Cleon I want to talk about this episode.
Please.
First, okay, when he's talking to Azura, right?
Yep.
He says that he wanted to be the best. He wanted to look, he wanted to be the funniest, the most dazzling when he gave his justice. And this goes back to the genetic dynasty of and what we've been talking about, the nature versus nurture. Like he had it in him that he wanted to be better, but yet when he grew into maturity after being beat down by this system of other Cleons.
Yeah. They don't want to improve. They don't want to change. They want to be the same. But I also think like the same system creates, he talked about a detachment, where it prevent like I feel like that detachment prevents them from being empathetic. And I kind of wonder whether or not the clones are the problem. For instance, Cleon the First, I mean, we didn't see much of him, so who knows if he did atrocities. But Cleon the First kind of seemed like a good guy. Like, he's literally building a bridge. That, to me, is the definition of kind of reaching out. And then Cleon the Second is the one that, like, rather than trying to, you know, reach out to these emerging powers on the outside, is like, how about I just get them to fight each other? That way they won't be powerful. And I kind of wonder if part of that is like this separation of not being as human and like losing that empathy for others.
Yeah. I and what's so sad, I do feel like he is empathetic. Day. Like I felt empathy towards Dawn. Just a version of himself. Like he does I don't feel like he has empathy for maybe Demerzel. Maybe.
Yeah, so like for his family he does.
But
and he even said that
else he doesn't care about.
Right. Like he even said something about, we love each other in our own way. So
yeah,
yes, I definitely think he feels empathy for his like brothers slash like son slash dad.
right.
And even Demerzel.
Right. It makes it heartbreaking, after him finding out this atrocity that has happened to Dawn, and whether or not, and I think he feels like this is kind of a win in his book, like he's like, I can appease the people of Luminism with this new Dawn that has a little genetic diversity, and I think part of him wanted to save him because he cared about him so much as a son.
Well, right, like we know that like he carries him like as a baby, like he's basically like a dad to him, and then teaching him. Scene was devastating.
And he carried him like a baby to get vaporized. It was so sad. The foreshadow was crazy there. It was so sad, and I felt so bad for this day.
I know, but then it's so that's the way he is with his family. But then once again, he has an opportunity, and he just chooses like the worst cruelty with Azora that we kind of talked about, and he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to do the thing he did back on the Maiden.
Mm-hmm.
Like
speaking of that scene with him and Azura where he was talking about her legacy. So there was a quote from Ernest Hemingway that says, "You die twice. You die once when you die, and the second time when you're pronounced dead." Then Banksy retooled the quote as, "You die twice, once when you die, and the second time when the last person utters your name again." And so with this, like, he just wiped out her legacy. And it was, I don't know if you noticed this, but when he was like talking about it, like saying how he got everybody, like you could hear the water, you could hear the bugs, and right when he went like this, everything went silent for like 20 seconds until she took a breath, and then you could hear everything come in again. And like he just destroyed her legacy in one fell swoop. Like nobody will ever think about her, speak about her. She's gone, wiped off the face of the universe.
That was another level of cruelty,
Well, I mean, I think he felt like because his empathy towards Dawn being his son. I think that he felt like he was having his son taken away from him, and now has caused this huge issue between him and Dusk about whether or not to keep him alive or not. And she's probably the one person in this world that has caused him the most pain.
Right. Ugh. That was like, there were a bunch of kind of like heart-wrenching scenes like that, or just like painful to watch, not necessarily always like heart-wrenching, but like difficult emotional topics to deal with.
Yes.
There was something very intriguing that came up when Day and Dusk were arguing about what to do with Dawn, and Dawn is there. Did you catch wind of this like Galactic Council?
I did hear about the Galactic Council, and I'm curious what that is.
I'm super curious, because if you take Dusk's comment all the way through, like taking out the interruption of Day, he says, if the Galactic Council discovers our dynastic thread is broken, we are through. And it just makes me wonder, is there some body that oversees Empire? Or is there like a treaty that was made with all of the peoples, and and that only holds true as long as there's a Cleon on the throne? Or like it seems like there is something that might have some power over Empire.
See, I didn't take it as power. I'm thinking it's like somebody that, kind of like you were saying, agrees to kind of take these orders from Cleon and is willing to like say that Cleon is the emperor as long as everything is in order. But like now we see cracks crumbling, and now the Galactic Council could be like, hey, wait a minute, why are we putting all our faith in Empire? Let's not trust him anymore. Let's form our own thing. So we'll see.
I mean, the fact that the fact that Dusk sounded like there was some level of fear was wild to me. Because normally, I mean, and Dusk seems like the type of guy that would be like, if the Galactic Council is an issue, let's just snuff them out.
Right. Just use the big stick to...
Yeah.
But the Galactic Council must have enough power to make it not easy to do.
That's kind of what I don't know. I think we're going to see about that in the next season. But I just thought that was an intriguing line that I completely missed the first time around.
Yeah, I heard it, but I didn't even really think about it. Like, I heard Galactic Council. I even wrote down Galactic Council. I just wasn't even thinking about that. But I did like that when Cleon finds out about that his DNA might be corrupt, Dusk's DNA might be corrupt. We don't know how corrupt this is. I'm pretty sure he asked Azura like the name of her like main organization, the Rebels or whatever. So I'm excited to see where that comes from. But when he found that out and he attacked the first Cleon that's behind the glass, and what did he attack it with? A big stick. He attacked his own dynasty with a big, well, I guess like his broken dynasty with the big stick, and I thought that was a nice little end mark for that. It was pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I want to talk about Demerzel's decision to kill Dawn. I feel like there are so many ways to interpret why she did that.
I feel the same way.
And I'm like itching to go over all of them.
The first thing I'm torn about is the fact that she doesn't shed a tear, and we've seen that she can be emotional.
And she does love him.
And yes, I do believe that.
And she told him as she was walking in Of course I love you. Like, I will always love you. And she even gave him the firm hand on the back, just like she gave to the previous Dusk. Oh, God, that was so good.
It hurt.
I feel like she did it to give a fuck you today. For one reason.
Okay, yeah.
So when they were on the Maiden, and she bowed in front of Day, and he was like, "Why would you do that?" She's like, "Of course, I'm loyal to the Empire. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that if it was in my programming." And I think there was a moment where she realized that she could kill this Dawn because she knew he was a threat to the Empire as they know it. And so she was gonna be like, see, look, I killed him. Like, I'm protecting the Empire more so than you even want to protect the Empire. Like, I just felt like it was a big, like, But
I kind of, that was one of the ways I feel, because, like, the fact that she didn't cry when she did it, and Day came up to her, and she had a look on her face, and it almost seemed like indignant or something, like something like
Yes.
she was taking a stand.
Yes.
For herself.
That's how it felt. Like she which also it kind of goes against what the primary Day was saying, but you could also make an argument that she did it because clearly Dusk and Day were at ends about whether to keep him or not. And like it, one was adamant about keeping him, one was adamant, getting rid of him. That's another threat to the Empire. So Demerzel could see, like, the only way to solve this is if I take there's no problem anymore.
Right.
God, that scene was just so... But I do think it hurt her, though.
I do think it did. I mean, her reaction afterwards.
I think she didn't shed a tear for Day, but I think that she was hurt by it.
Yeah. And then when she tears off her skin, is that her, like, tearing off the last of her humanity? So that people can see her as what I don't know. It's hard to explain because, like, we do kind of feel like she has a soul, that she has purpose, and she's been doing so much of what she can to look human. Maybe this is like her way of showing that you can have one and not have to be the other. Like, you don't have to be a human to have a soul. That she can, be who she is and be a robot, but still make her own choices. I don't know. I can't tell if that was if those were emotions or if that was like a choice.
I think it like that when she screamed at the end.
Tears her skin off, all of it.
I think it was emotions because if you look when she was there, when we first get to her station of her makeup vanity or whatever, we only look at her through mirrors, through a reflection. Like, so to me, she's reflecting on what she just did and is now feeling like she is a monster for killing Day. Because I do think she did love Dawn. She loved Dawn very much. She doesn't care if the genetic dynasty is fine. Like, she basically raised him. She said that, I'm programmed to love you. Or whether it's biological or programming, like, it's still, like, love. And I think she was coming to terms with what she did.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, and this is kind of off topic and really doesn't have anything to do with the episode
Sure.
itself, but I'm curious, do you think that she can feel? Like, feel? Like, was that painful
Oh,
for her to take that skin off like that?
uh, I I think that she can feel. I don't think that she needs pain receptors to do that. Like pain receptors are something that have developed over time in order to let us know when we are getting hurt because we're fragile, and that pain lets us know like instantly you got to stop doing what you're doing
So you think
because you're
that
getting
she
damaged.
maybe has like a program in her head that says like, "Hey, your skin is being torn off. This is not good."
Yeah. I think she can just like internalize that, and I mean whether or not she has fear could be another thing. Like, does she fear getting caught as a robot, and is that why she is like looking like a human? And so, does she have fear that if she takes damage that others could see what she really is? I don't know about that. Like
Well, so I'm
that's I,
interested when she walked the spiral. Like, did it. Like, we saw how the spiral affects the normal human being, but, like, how did the spiral affect her? Like, did she have a vision? Like, we still don't even know if she was granted a
she
vision.
said she did have a vision.
Oh, she did? I couldn't remember that. So
Yes.
she was granted a
She said,
vision.
yeah, because he said like a robot got a vision.
Oh, see, I couldn't remember if she had a vision.
Oh yeah.
So, like, that's another part of it. Like, to me, it would seem that, like, part of going on the spiral itself, the journey, the heat exhaustion, lack of food, lack of water, would all, like, contribute to the vision, kind of like how Dave was seeing it. But, like, now that just brings in a whole nother aspect of it, of, like, how did she receive a vision?
I mean, I think it's if the mother chooses to give you a vision.
So you're a luminist, is what you're saying.
That's
I'm more of an empire kind of guy, but if you're a luminist, I understand.
I'm more of a foundationalist.
I do like the foundation. We saw that these are two different Harrys. The ones on the Raven and the one here are two different Harrys.
If I know.
The only way I know is because that Harry said, "Where's Gale? Is Gale not here?" That Harry knew Gale wasn't there. They're two different Harrys. I want to see these Harrys fight. I'm just kidding. I don't want to see them fight. But we did. I feel like we got
Yeah.
we got a lot of confirmations this episode of things that we have talked about. What the vault is.
Right.
Salvor's parents.
Right.
We called that from the beginning. That was one of our early predictions. And we spot on with that.
And I'd still feel like that was potentially supposed to be like a big reveal.
Yeah.
But I feel like like all the evidence was right there.
Yeah. I feel like it was pretty glaring, but the music when she was telling her about her legacy and her birth parents, it was like playing that welling music where it was like and then like she says it and it's like duh. So I do feel like it was supposed to be a big reveal, which was a little disappointing.
Right.
Now, do you think the vault, like, we saw it fly through space, do you think it can leave Terminus?
I would think it can. I mean, it certainly seemed like it was able to travel through space. I would think it can possibly do that journey again, maybe.
And I guess the main question is, what is the vault still? Like, yes, Harry's consciousness is in it, but, like, what else is it supposed to do?
I don't know because like you point out, like it's still there. So does it still? Maybe it's now it's there for the second crisis,
Maybe.
because he does say that this is the first crisis, but it's not going to be the last.
Right.
And I think he knows what the next crisis is, because he knew this crisis.
Right. So then, do you think in... Okay, this is skipping the vault, going over to
Sure.
Cleons. Do we
Sure.
think... Which Cleon do we think we'll see in season 2? I don't think we'll see any of them.
I mean, I think we might see like a little bit of connective moments, that lead us from where we are to the 128-year jump.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like we saw some of those connective moments here, like there was episode 1, 2, and 3 had a decent amount of like time jump between them. And I think I could see something like that helps fill in the blanks between, what's happened between what we saw up to 128 years later and 128 years later.
Right.
Because I think some pretty interesting stuff is going to happen in that time. Like
In the 138 years?
138 years. Like,
Oh.
that's a decent amount. Like, I think Polly was only saying that it was only going to take like 18 months to make that ship. So
the second
in 3
Invictus.
years, yeah. So in 3 years, they could have like 3 of them. I don't think they need to be doing it for 130 plus years, like making ships. So
I just feel like there's so much to tell in that 138 years that we don't see, that I feel like, yes, we will see some in season 2, but I feel like there's got to be, now that Salvor and Gaal are 138 years in the future, a lot of it's going to be over there, I feel like, in that timeline. Like, maybe towards the end. Maybe a couple episodes building up what happened, but...
that's what I think. I think like episodes 1, 2, and 3 will kind of like 1 and 2 will like catch us up to back to where we ended.
Okay, yeah, I think that makes sense.
And then like 3 and on will kind of be in that current timeline. Maybe.
Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just a guess. I did want to share kind of an interesting different perspective, which is Dawn was not a big fan of the ending because it's such a big time jump that she's worried that all of these relationships that we've learned about and like built up and found an attachment to, like how many of those are going to go on? Like, do we have to start things all over again as far as like learning new characters, making new relationships?
So, I mean, yeah, that is kind of how I felt about it too. But I mean, like we were saying, like Cleon and the Empire's basically going to be the same-ish, with Demerzel the same-ish. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and then we have Gaal and Salvor, which, 2 best characters. We might not see Mari, again, her mom. 138 years, I don't think she will. I think we will see...
Hugo.
Hugo, right. So I do think Hugo will come back, and, we'll still see Hari, because he's a conscious, thing. I feel like we get a lot of the main ones back. Who is she worried about?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think that she assumed that Hugo was going to make it, because it's not like Hugo only sleeps when he travels, and if he has a jump ship, I mean, unless he chooses to do a Sleeping Beauty thing and like put himself to sleep until somebody wakes him up, like, he doesn't know where Salvor went, which means he doesn't know how long she's going to be in cryo for. So it's not just a case of like getting to the right. It's getting to a place and a time that both of them he doesn't know.
Right. And the galaxy is vast, and it's not like you can just easily call each other and be like, hey, where are
Right.
you? But I guess what I don't understand is that Gale narrates and talks about him being the captain of the Invictus. And I can't imagine him being the captain of the Invictus for a minute on screen just to blast a solar flare, solar flare like thing, and never be seen again.
I think we might see him in like episode 1 or 2 of next season. Until we kind of have that. Those are just my thoughts. We'll see.
I know. Now I'm so curious. I feel we got to see a lot of the animals in this one of the world.
Oh yeah.
It didn't make too much sense with the deer. He just pointed at the deer. He's like, "Oh, look." But like he didn't say anything about it. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, look." There's just a cool looking, and it was like a really cool looking stag like thing.
Right.
Like it looked neat. We saw the little guys on Synax that we'd seen from overhead shots, come up.
Okay, what if?
Yeah.
What if?
I'm ready.
I mean, I guess she actually did work on the surface, so she might have had. It's possible she saw some of this stuff because she's a gardener, whereas most people couldn't. But what I was originally thinking is like, what if because the surface is the world of the Cleons, and everybody else is meant for like underneath and sees like at best simulations, and sometimes might not even see simulations of like the fauna, Like, what if that was just to, like, let her see some of the beauty casually of this world before he so cruelly takes it away? Like, to give her one more thing to really make it hurt.
Yeah.
When he takes it away. Like, as he's walking along, he's like, oh, wow. You may have never seen that. That's beautiful, isn't it? Let's continue walking for a little bit.
And then, bam. And that'll probably be like her last, like, probably the last beautiful thing she saw was that, like, deer. And she'll probably hold on to that in her ghost torture memory prison. It is.
But it was a little bit random.
Okay, but I felt like they were like, oh, hey, it's the final episode. Look at how cool our animals are in this show. Maybe. Right. I did I don't know if they're two different gardens, but it does seem like Dawn's garden and Day's garden are kind of different. Like, Dawn, well, and I don't know if they have like separate gardens or whatnot, but like when Dawn is talking to Azura in the garden, it's all those like small bushes, the rose bushes, like little plants that, whatever stuff she gave him to ease the pain. Yeah. But then like where he was like threatening her and telling her stuff, it was this like these elaborate like big like swampy oak trees or maybe not oak trees, but these big swamping like willowy trees and like giant ponds, and it seemed like his garden was more grown, like he's grown twice as long as him, so like his garden is, I don't know if that's what they were doing, but felt like that.
Yeah, that's it. And it does kind of remind me of some other gardens I've gone to, so I wonder if it has a number of different parts. Like there are large gardens will oftentimes have different themes kind of throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even at my grandmother's place, like she lives on a farm and she has a number of different gardens, and each one has kind of like, and obviously these are like tiny in comparison, but still each one of them has like has its own feel and flair to it.
Are you telling me your grandma doesn't have the same garden as the Empire of the Galaxy? That's ridiculous.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. She might. I said that each of her gardens is different.
Okay. Gotcha.
But also definitely not that elaborate.
It is not elaborate. I bet it is.
The show never really let us, like, truly like grieve for somebody. So like everybody was kind of disposable. And I think like the way it was filmed, I think removes you a little bit from it. Like you said in the beginning where it was like episode 2, you're like, I'm not super into this way of filming. Like I don't I feel like we've jumped past a bunch of parts and I'm not like super into these people. And then they didn't even let us know that Raish was necessarily dead. It was just kind of implied that maybe he's like, unless they come up with some clever way of bringing him back in, he'd be old AF, right? So it's like, he's not, it's not likely he's around, but they didn't actually give us closure to let us like feel bad about it. And when they did finally show it, it was, I don't feel like it was gut wrenching. It was really sad.
But it was like a recording.
Yeah.
But like when we find out he dies, it's like episode 5 or 6 around there, and we only saw him for the first 2 episodes. The first episode barely any. Second episode, like he has this crazy passionate love for Gaal, but like they have this huge love that's only been introduced the second episode, and then it's taken away the second episode. So it's like it's so
Right.
hard to care about some of the connections these characters had with each other.
And so, like, with that being our experience, is like to not really feel this loss. I think Salvor's dad was probably the one that they tried to put the most effort into. And they did a good job. They didn't do a great job. Like I've had deaths like that where it's like it literally brings tears to your eyes.
Yeah.
I've had friggin' animes make me cry.
I've been crying in One Piece, man. I cry every time in One Piece. It's crazy.
And so I feel like there's, I don't know, like the way it's filmed, like there's maybe the scope, like there's a certain level of detachment of like you never know if you're gonna see these characters again, if there's gonna be another time, like you don't know what the rules are. Like there were time jumps, a ton of them in the beginning. Maybe there'll be a bunch more towards the end. So it's like maybe these characters won't matter. So it's the scope makes it a little bit too big to like be able to connect. It's kind of like I just read about astronauts going into space. A lot of them have this thing where, as a person on Earth, the Earth seems like this enormous place, And when astronauts go into space and they see Earth from space, their perspective completely changes because all of a sudden, Earth is this tiny ball in this infinite space. It is fragile. It has like a wisp of air going around it to sustain life. Like it is such a fragile ball where all the life on it can be snuffed out so easily that the idea of like you can't see borders, so the idea of like politics and fighting and all these other things just doesn't make any sense when it's like we should all be working together to protect this precious thing on this like fragile marble.
Yeah.
So like I kind of feel like this is like a different perspective where it's like it's so far out. It's almost like Day's perspective where it's kind of like it doesn't have as much empathy for the characters because like you're thinking so big picture instead of focusing on the individuals,
Yeah. But
I mean, Harry's already talking about like 1,000 years from now, so he's not saying that nothing that they do matters, but also that like he's talking big picture, versus like what one person does.
Also, we kind of predicted in the beginning that Harry is lying about a bunch of stuff. And it seems like he has been lying. I do feel like as somebody of Terminus, it would be so hard to just even trust Harry. Like, you put all your blind faith in him, and then you found out you were being lied to, and seeing how he's been lying to Gaal this whole time.
we were saying, or at least I was saying, that like Terminus is moving kind of towards like a religion. I think that breaks that, you know? Even if they still have the same goals, I don't think that they are going to worship Hari the same way, even if they begrudgingly follow him.
Now, do you think the rebels that tried to infiltrate Cleon, are they related to Hari? Because Hari seems like a revolutionary at this point. Like, at this point, we thought he was just a mathematician. He's just trying to save people through psychohistory. But he's now said that he is a revolutionary. And, like, he even said he was lying to the Cleons about being a revolutionary. And so, like, now I am suspecting maybe he is part of the bridge attack. And maybe we know he has Foundation too. So I don't think that that's something that's trying to keep everybody, humanity going. I think that that is part of another revolutionary group of people. Is he connected to the rebels?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But with that, I think our journey has come to an end. We have just finished up Foundation Season 1. Our next show that we will be tackling is Silo. So Silo Season 1, Season 1, Episode 1. Come back here next Monday, and we will have that episode here for you. I'm Mark. This is Sterling.
Thanks.